Okay, so I'm interviewing Mr. Beckwith, who is Clara's Chinese teacher, about etiquette and manners in China. So, have you ever lived in China?
Yes, I have. I lived there for 6 years. And furthermore, my wife is Chinese, so I'm kind of immersed into the culture somewhat.
Okay. Which rule of etiquette would you say is the most important to follow in China?
I think almost all the rules, well, not almost all the rules, but a large chunk of them, maybe half of them, all come down to respecting elders, especially your parents, and especially the father in China. Although the father thing, because of modernization, it's becoming more, means more just parents, but it's respect of those who are above you. I think that's it.
Okay. What was the relatively weirdest rule?
I didn't know if it's weird, but it is something that was counterintuitive to me, is that in China, if you're close to someone, if they're relative or sometimes even friends, they don't say thank you to each other, please to each other. It's considered almost rude to do that because they feel like you are, if you're close to each other, you don't have to say that polite talk. That's for strangers and people who are not close to you. So they won't say, can you please give me that? And thank you for giving me this, because it's not expected.
What would you say is the most annoying one?
What is the most annoying one? I wouldn't call it annoying, but I could say that it frustrated me in the sense that I didn't really know how to handle it. And that's the fact that a lot of Chinese people do not like to say directly what they're thinking to make sure that there isn't fights or disagreements. They don't like to publicly disagree. So I remember talking to groups of Chinese people, and I state my opinion, and I felt, well, it's just my opinion. And the other people were giving answers that were kind of unclear, and I'm like, what's going on? So do you believe this or that? And they wouldn't say clearly what it was, and I'm getting a little frustrated. And come on, what's your real idea? They come to think about it, they just didn't want to openly disagree with someone, especially probably a teacher, because again, that respect thing, you're above me. So that was something that was I wasn't used to, because in our culture we generally don't shy from that unless it's extremely sensitive.
How important were those rules?
It's kind of funny, like I was thinking about this. To me, I've always felt that rules in a society are very important in China, and I still kind of do, but I also think that probably they felt more important to me because they were different than my society's rules. Since it was different, I'm like, oh wow, that's important. It's not important in America, but a lot of things in China, a lot of things in America that's important aren't important, in China. Sometimes in China, like if you have a bone in your food, you just spit it out on the table. I can't imagine doing that around here. They might think, wow, Americans' rules are important. So I don't really know if the rules are more important, but I suspect they are more rule-oriented, but it's just the rules are different.
Which ones were the most different from the ones in the U.S.?
Which ones were the most different than the ones in the U.S.? Well, like I said, there's the one about parents, family members, you don't say. Often Chinese people don't use etiquette with each other. What's the most different? They're just all over the place, really. It's just like simple things like in the restaurant. Who's the most important person at the table if you're sitting? It's not the person at the head of the table. That's a guest. I guess it is important. It's a guest of honor, but the person that's paying for the meal, that sets it all up, is actually the person closest to the door, so that they can help order things and facilitate things. But they try to keep that person's out of the attention. There's just all kinds of little differences and sometimes big differences. Like, for example, if you give birth to a baby in China, a lot of women do not get out of bed for a month. I met someone, this is not a practice all through China, if a family member died, you're not allowed to wash your hair and shave your face for a month. I don't know why. That person said it's only their little hometown that does that, but I found lots of instances like that. It's really hard to say one thing, it's all over the place.
Do you know about like ancient Chinese manners?
A little bit. China manners were, most of them come down to teachings of Confucius. Confucius and his followers through the ages set out rules for society. One reason we can say that while rules are important in America and rules are important in China and they're different, we can say that, but one reason we can say it's probably more important in China is that Confucius said that etiquette, rules, rituals in society are very important to the society, and they stress them very much. So they laid down lots of rules, and some of those rules continue today. I find that the rules are probably less strong than they used to. Like, for example, it used to be that if a son's father died, passed away, they took a year off to mourn. They wouldn't do anything literally for a year, at least do no official normal business for a year. They'd take the year off. Again, respect to the parents. I don't know if it's a respect thing, if it's exactly etiquette, but it's a societal rule thing. Certain people were not allowed to do things. The biggest example is if you're the emperor, only you could wear a dragon or the color gold. If someone else was caught with that, they would be executed. So there's been all kinds of rules throughout the ages. As China's more modernized, the rules have gotten more soft and softer and softer. But there's still a lot of them. And I think if you were to go back in time in ancient China, you would find a lot of the rules that were then still exist today.
Which of the ancient Chinese manner etiquette laws would you say was the most important?
Again, father, respect for father, and those above you, but father is the big thing. The one thing I found is different is well, not the one thing honestly, but another thing I can think of is in China, or in America, when a man and woman marry, they start their own family. But in China, if you're a man and you have a son.
Attention staff and students, if you are in the building and not affiliated with an extracurricular activity, which today is only athletics, you need to exit the building for the weekend. Gladys, if you're in the building, please report to the main office. Your sister is looking for you. Gladys, report to the main office. Thank you.
In ancient China, so snip there, but anyways, in ancient China, and even today, well, what I'm saying is, in America, man and woman get together, have a family, they have children, then those children someday have their own family, and so on, they start new families. But in China, a man has a son. If that son gets married, they move into the house of dad. And if the dad's son has children, now he has a grandson, those kids stay in the house, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger until finally the original dad passes away. But it's like you never come underneath, rise above your father in China until he's no longer living. So throughout time, that's staying consistent. Now it's softening a bit because China's influenced by other places, modernizing. You still feel that, but in China, ancient China, that would have been a huge thing. It would have been shocking how much the father was in control of everything, I think, at least by modern standards.
And which rule of etiquette would you say is your favorite?
I think throughout Chinese history, they are very hospitable people to guests, generally speaking. I was a guest in China for 6 years, and that makes it easy, I guess, living there, because they will generally be kind to visitors. I don't think Americans are unkind, but I do think that we are so used to visitors and we don't put a special thing in our culture that we need to treat someone from another country kindly, that we just don't really care, okay? But in China, if there's someone from outside visit your sphere, you're supposed to treat them with extra care and all that. And obviously that benefited me because I lived there for 6 years, so it made it very pleasant living there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. 再见. Will that do?